Hey everybody. So for today's movie review, I'm going to talk about the film Black Christmas. The thing about this film, and it's actually kind of funny when you think about it, Black Christmas is directed by the same guy who made A Christmas Story. And the funny thing is this film is actually made before A Christmas Story. So what's funny is the man who's brought us one of the greatest Christmas films of all time, one of the happier Christmas films of all time, has also brought us the darkest Christmas movie of all time. So I just thought that was kind of funny. Um, it was kind of funny how like he went from this I'm gonna make this really scary horror film to I'm gonna make this really happy and generous and family family friendly movie, and it's just like that's kind of weird. Like when the more you think about it, the more weird it is. But anyway, for Black Christmas, you guys, what's kind of funny about this film too is that's kind of the intrigue about this film is it reminds you of things that are funny, or it reminds you, or it makes you think about things just like, wow, how did those two things connect? What I mean by that is Halloween came out 4 years after this film. This film came out in 1974. So that would have been 4 years before the original Halloween. And so, this film doesn't get as much credit as Halloween does, or even Psycho. Psycho, in some ways, kind of started it was kind of, it had a subgenre of slasher film. But some consider this to be one of the first ones. Um, even though Halloween gets mostly the credit for all of that. But at the same time, though, Psycho gets kind of somewhat of the credit for that because it kind of started that idea of a slasher film. But strangely enough, if you really want to get technical, Black Christmas is one of the first slasher films. Um, Due to it coming out before Halloween. But anyway, in this film, you guys, I apologize for rambling on there. In Black Christmas, we get a group of women who are living together in this home. Um, Kind of like other horror films like Halloween, for once again Friday the 13th. These people are killed off one by a mysterious force in this house. This person or thing manages to crawl into the house through kind of this thing on the side of the house and kind of lives up in this attic. Um, and another thing that this killer does is not only is it killing off all these people one by one with these household things, um, this killer is always calling the house, leaving very unusual messages, um, talking about very inappropriately sexual things, threatening the person on the phone, like telling them they're gonna, do all these really bad things to family members. So just kind of these really unusual, random, bizarre phone calls. Um, and throughout the film, like I said, people are getting killed off. But most of the film, Olivia Hussey plays this woman who is pregnant with this one guy's child, and this guy is who impregnated her is this very hardcore musician. He works at kind of this place where it's kind of the beginning for people who want to make into like this big orchestra business and become these really big name musicians. Um, and she announces to this guy that she's pregnant with his child. She wants to abort it. He wants to keep it. He wants to marry her. She does not want to marry him. So there's this huge fraud, this huge fight going on with that. And for a while, you really think that it's this. I'm not going to get too much into spoilers, but for a while you really start to believe that um, this guy is the killer because there's just so many hints, so many the killer in some way on the phone sounds very much like him. His outfit's very similar to this boyfriend. Um, but after a while, you begin to realize that this guy is really not much. He's not the person you think he is, and so these people get killed off one by one. By the end of the film, you think it's over with. You think the person that was the killer is dead. The police leave the house. It's very quiet, but kind of like John Carpenter's Halloween, um, there's something shown at the very end that it never really gets answered, but the story continues on forever, even though you think it just got done. So I guess that's the most I can say without ruining the film. So with Black Christmas, you guys, I did really enjoy this film. It definitely kind of had a Friday the 13th Halloween feeling to it. Definitely, a 70s horror film starting up the slasher genre. And it was really interesting to watch a film that felt very contemporary like that. For the positive, you guys, kind of like the original Halloween. Once again, I'm sorry I have to reference that because it's very similar to Halloween. It's a first-person opening where you watch the killer do something extreme, do something scary near the beginning, and while everybody else is kind of oblivious to what's going on. So, a very interesting and well filmed first person opening in this film. Um, I like how this film, even though I'll probably complain about it in other films, but I do like how the film does feel a little formulaic in the sense that it follows kind of this setup that a lot of 70s horror films, specifically near the end of the decade, started using, like in Halloween, like in Friday the 13th during the 80s, like in Nightmare on Elm Street, like in Hellraiser. Um, that it kind of followed this formula, and because it followed this formula, we're expecting all these great things, and we kind of laugh and we're intrigued by the setup because it's worked in so many other films, and it works very well in this film. I like how the film kind of had the drunk, the leader, and that each person, specifically the victims of this killer, they kind of represent something in the film. You're always going to have the drunk, you're always going to have the leader, you're always going to have the person getting, who wants to get laid. You want to have the person that's kind of passionate about what's going on in the sense it's Christmas time, so you have the person who's passionate about Christmas time. So I like how the film kind of had these symbolic characters that represent, something that's now considered a formulaic horror film with, the victims representing certain things. This film was very scary. It's just a really creepy film, very eerie. It definitely made you not want to explore and look at this house just because it's just so dark and creepy to look at. Um, and when it's dead silent, it really feels dead silent. Like anything can pop out at any second. So director Bob Clark, I'm pretty sure that's Bob Clark, who directed, like I said, A Christmas Story earlier. He really gave this film a very scary feeling. Building off of that, the film had very effective and creepy music. Not quite the level of John Carpenter's Halloween, but it was very creepy music that definitely supported the scary things that were going on in this film. For the negative, you guys, this film is very slow moving, and I think that's one reason why I'm not gonna, view this film as the classic the way like Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street later became. It's just very, very slow. It just the horror elements almost come to a halt at one point. There's this one gap in the film where there's like almost no horror elements at all. We never see the killer. There's no killings going on. There's this giant, giant halt in this film that even though I understand, they're doing that for storyline purposes, but it's this halt goes on for a very, very long and uncomfortable time. Um, like I said before, this film just isn't quite the classic that Halloween and Friday the 13th became to be, but it is really fun. It's just that, like I said, there's just not enough to it to make it me view it as like a all time great classic. Um, I think it would have been cool if I know they wanted to keep the killer anonymous in this film. I think it would have been cool if he like wore a mask or they did something more with him rather than just this random guy doing these killings. Um, I think like maybe like a mask or do something with him because he was scary with what they had, but I would have personally preferred like a mask or an outfit or something that we're gonna always remember this character by. Um, and kind of like what I was saying before, this film is very open ended. It's almost too open ended to the point where they just didn't leave you enough clues to make you happy with how they chose to end the film. And I think that's what's going to hurt Black Christmas the most, is that it's just too open ended and there's just not enough clues left behind for you to build upon your own interpretation of how the film ended and who this killer really was. But overall, guys, I do give Black Christmas an 8.5 out of 10. It's a very good film, but like I said, it's just a little too open ended. There's not enough clues left behind in it. Um, because there's a very limited amount of characters, there just isn't enough reasoning, explanation, or existence as to why the film ended the way it did. It just kind of it bothers you. I understand Bob Clark probably wanted to bother you with this ending, but it's just not enough clues left behind it to make you form your own opinion. There just isn't enough things there. But it is a very good film, you guys. It's definitely worth seeing if you like horror films and slasher films. So Black Christmas is really good, but just be warned though, it's just a little too open ended and there's just not enough clues left behind for certain parts.